In the last episode, a photo changed everything. Ava Cole, alive, terrified, bound to a chair. And a cryptic message. You want the truth? Come alone. Midnight. Route 16 overpass. The desert wind howled beneath the overpass. A single streetlight flickered overhead as Nora Wells stepped from her car, her heart a war drum in her chest. She had come alone just like the message said. No badge. No gun. Just a wire in her coat pocket and a silent prayer that Ruiz was watching from afar. The bridge was quiet. Empty. Until a dark sedan rolled out from the shadows. The passenger door opened. A figure stepped out, hoodie drawn tight. Nora reached for her flashlight, lifted it toward the figure. And froze. Paul Reddick. The mayor's son. The boy scrubbed from the case. The red hoodie. The ghost hiding behind power and privilege. Only now, the ghost was standing 10 feet from her. You got guts coming alone? He said, voice slick with amusement. I'm not here for games, Nora replied, forcing her voice steady. Where's Ava? Paul smiled as if she'd asked a riddle. You think this is about her? He tossed a phone onto the pavement between them. The screen lit up. A video began to play. Ava. Crying. Pleading. Gagged. A man behind the camera whispered. She talks, she dies. Just like Ellie almost did. Nora's fists clenched. Almost did. So Ellie was alive. Or had been. Recently. Paul knelt beside the phone. I'm not the monster they think I am, he said. My father, he made me part of this. I was 12. I didn't understand. Where is Ava? Nora demanded. Paul looked away. I'll give you coordinates. But not for her. For her. Nora blinked. Her who? Ellie, he said. Then he turned and walked back to the car. Nora shouted after him. You ran from justice. Paul stopped. I ran from him. The car sped off into the night. Ruiz emerged moments later from the brush, gun drawn. You let him go? Nora handed him the phone. No. I let him lead us to the truth. 2 hours later, Nora and Ruiz stood in front of an abandoned farmhouse outside Ashfield, GPS coordinates pulled from the video's metadata. It was silent. Dead. The moon cast jagged shadows over the collapsed porch and broken windows. Inside, the stench of mold and rot choked the air. They moved carefully, flashlights sweeping. Then in a back room, a mattress on the floor, duct tape, a child's backpack, and carved into the wall with a jagged object. I am Ellie. I am not dead. Nora's voice cracked. Oh my God. Ruiz knelt by the mattress. Blood stains. Faded. But it wasn't just Ellie who had been here. There were signs of others, scraps of clothing, initials scratched into the wall. This wasn't a house. It was a holding cell. At HQ, forensics confirmed it. Multiple DNA samples. One matched Ellie Jamison. Another, a fresh match from the national database, belonged to Emily Voss, a girl reported missing from Utah 6 years earlier. Emily had been presumed dead. But she wasn't. Nora paced the war room, photos of missing girls now covering the whiteboard. This was never about one girl. Or one killer. This was an operation. Ruiz nodded grimly. Mayor Reddick funded the Save Our Youth program to recruit Keller. Keller used the church as cover to groom and isolate girls. And Paul? He was the cleaner. The red hoodie, the delivery boy. Nora added one more name to the board. Senator Blake Harding. A donor to the Save Our Youth initiative. A regular visitor to Ashfield, according to hotel logs Ruiz had quietly pulled. A man with influence deep enough to bury bodies without ever digging a hole. Then came the break they weren't expecting. A tip from Ava's bank account, a $500 charge made the day after she vanished. To a small motel, in northern Oregon. Nora and Ruiz drove through the night. At the front desk, the clerk hesitated, until Ruiz flashed his badge. Yes, a girl matching her photo checked in, the clerk said. She was with a man. Looked off. Controlling. Room 16. They knocked. No answer. They kicked the door in. Empty. But the sheets were still warm. Cigarette smoke clung to the curtains. And in the trash bin, a photo torn in half. Ruiz taped the pieces together. Eva. And Ellie. Together. Back in Ashfield, Nora sat in silence at her desk, heart pounding as the truth finally horribly clicked into place. Ava didn't just stumble into this story. She had been part of it. One of the trafficked. One who escaped. But instead of running, she stayed. To get Ellie out. To expose everyone. And when she got too close, they tried to silence her, again. Then a text. Blocked number. One word. Help. Attached. GPS coordinates in the woods near a dried-up lake bed. Ruiz said what they were both thinking. It's her. As they reached the lake bed, wind howled through the trees. A rusted hatch lay buried beneath brush. Nora and Ruiz pried it open. A ladder. Darkness. Ruiz descended first, gun drawn. Then Nora heard him gasp. "Nora, get down here." She climbed down into the bunker. And there, chained to a post, bruised but breathing, Ava Cole. Nora ran to her. "Ava, it's okay, we've got you." But Ava didn't smile. Didn't cry. Instead, she said something that froze Nora's blood. "He's still down here." Ruiz spun around, weapon raised. And from the shadows, a voice echoed. Smooth. Chilling. "I always knew you'd come back." Pastor Jim Keller. Well, eyes gleaming. Holding something in his hand. A detonator. "Move," he whispered, "and we all go." Ava Cole was found alive, hidden in an underground bunker beneath a dried-up lake bed. But she wasn't alone. Pastor Jim Keller stepped from the shadows, holding a detonator. For a split second, time stood still. The humid air inside the bunker thickened with dread. Nora could barely breathe. Sweat beaded at her temple as she raised both hands slowly. Ruiz had his weapon trained on Keller but didn't move. The detonator in Keller's grip wasn't a bluff. It was real. And his thumb hovered over the trigger. "Step back," Keller said, voice eerily calm. "No sudden moves." Ruiz's jaw tightened. "You detonate that thing and you die too." Keller smiled. "You think I haven't made peace with that?" Ava's voice, hoarse, desperate, cracked through the tension. "Jim, you don't have to do this." His eyes flicked to her. For a moment, something human trembled behind his mask. "You don't understand, Ava," he whispered. "They'll never let the truth out. I was trying to save them. From what was coming. From him." "Him?" Nora asked, keeping her voice soft. "You mean Mayor Reddick?" Keller scoffed. "That puppet? No, he was just a gatekeeper. The real devil wears a suit in Washington." Ruiz stepped slightly to the left, angling for a better shot. "Don't," Keller warned. Nora saw Ruiz freeze. The detonator's red light blinked slowly. "I was supposed to disappear," Keller continued, his voice rising, unspooling like a sermon. "Fake my death, start over." "But she," he nodded at Ava, "she came back. She kept digging. She couldn't leave well enough alone." Ava blinked through tears. "Because you left Ellie behind." Keller's eyes burned. "She was never supposed to survive. She was a complication." That word, complication. It hit Nora like ice. He didn't just groom them. He used them, broke them, sold them. And if Ellie had survived, then she was out there, somewhere, hiding, running, or worse still trapped. Nora took a cautious step forward. "Jim, we don't have to end this here. You think you can fix this with a courtroom?" Keller hissed. "They'll bury the files. Seal the names. Trade favors behind oak panel doors while girls like Ellie vanish into the dirt." And then, something cracked. Emotion twisted his face. "I tried to stop it." Nora shook her head, voice trembling. "No. You became it." Keller blinked just once. And in that flicker of hesitation, Ruiz moved. A single shot rang out. Keller fell. The detonator clattered to the floor. Ava screamed. Smoke curled in the confined space, but no explosion came. Ruiz rushed forward, kicking the device aside, grabbing Keller's wrist. "No pulse," he said. It was over. Or so they thought. Hours later, Ava sat wrapped in a blanket, sipping water inside an ambulance. She didn't speak for a long time. Then softly she said, "There's one more place." Nora leaned in. "Where?" Ava looked up, eyes hollow. "The farm. North edge of town. Where they kept the overflow." "Overflow," Ruiz repeated. Ava nodded slowly. "The ones they didn't sell." The address led them to an abandoned apple orchard, fenced off, long forgotten. Nature had begun reclaiming the land. But as they stepped through the crooked gate, Ava pointed toward a collapsed barn at the rear. There, beneath the floorboards. They pried the rotting planks apart and uncovered a hatch. Another bunker. This one was colder, larger, and filled with bones. Tiny shoes, dolls, scraps of backpacks. A handprint, small and smeared in dried blood, stained the wall. Ruiz covered his mouth. "Jesus." Nora dropped to her knees. Clara Hayes had confessed to a crime she never committed, while the real crime scene rotted just miles away. Nora's voice trembled. These girls, they were never meant to be found. And yet, someone had carved names into the wooden wall. A memorial of sorts. One name stood out, Ellie J. But beneath it, a second newer carving. Still here. Nora's heart stopped. She's alive, she whispered. Or she was, recently. That night, Nora returned home unable to sleep. She pored over every file, every photo. The way Keller said, he's in Washington. The way Ava said, they didn't sell them all. There was still one name circled on the whiteboard in her office. Senator Blake Harding. Ava had identified him as a donor. Keller feared him. And his travel logs lined up with the disappearances of multiple girls. Ashfield, Cedar Falls, Glenview. Always in town. Always unaccounted. And then Nora found it. A government procurement contract dated 6 years ago. Signed off by Mayor Thomas Reddick. Countersigned by Blake Harding. The contract wasn't for education. It was for youth relocation support services. A shell company. Tied to a now-dissolved nonprofit. And listed among the relocated youth. Ellie Jamison. Nora bolted upright. They used government funding to move her. Not hide. The trafficking ring wasn't just a town-wide scandal, it was national. Morning broke, cold and gray, as Nora stood with Ruiz at the edge of the orchard bunker. They'd already called in the FBI. Dozens of cadaver dogs were searching the woods. Ava was taken into protective custody. But there was still no sign of Ellie. Until a young officer came running from the woods. "We found something," he said breathlessly. "A shelter. Someone was living there. And this." He handed Nora a necklace. A small silver heart. Tarnished. Etched with the name. Ellie. Nora clutched it, hands trembling. "She's out there," she whispered. And now, finally, the world would believe it. But as they walked back to the vehicles, Ruiz's phone buzzed. Unknown number. A distorted voice crackled through the speaker. "You should have stayed out of this, detective. You've poked a very old bear." Then silence. Nora turned to him. "They're watching us." Ruiz looked at her, fear creeping into his voice. "And if they're watching us, they know we're close." The courthouse was packed. Media cameras clicked relentlessly. Crowds gathered outside, hungry for answers that had been denied for years. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Nora sat beside Clara Hayes, whose pale face finally showed traces of relief. No longer the accused but a survivor. The prosecutor laid out the case. The trafficking ring was exposed. Evidence meticulously gathered from Keller's bunker, the orchard bones, flight logs and secret contracts. The names of the powerful men were no longer whispers behind closed doors. They were on trial. Senator Blake Harding sat stone-faced, his political empire crumbling. Mayor Thomas Reddick, shackled, showed no remorse. But the true star of the courtroom was Ellie Jamison herself. She appeared by video link, fragile but fierce. Her voice cracked as she told the court how she'd survived. Escaping the farm, hiding in the woods, relying on a neighbor's kindness. She named names. She refused to be silenced. Outside the courthouse, Ava and Nora stood together. Ava's eyes reflected a storm of pain and hope. "I thought they'd never find me," she whispered. Nora squeezed her hand. "You're not alone anymore." The trial lasted weeks. Day after day, witnesses testified. Former victims, insiders, even Keller's recordings, where his twisted loyalty to the ring was laid bare. The defense tried every tactic. Intimidation, misinformation, character assassination. But the truth was relentless. And with each verdict, the victims found their voices. The final day. The jury filed back into the courtroom. The foreman stood. Guilty. On all counts. Trafficking. Kidnapping. Conspiracy. Abuse of power. The courtroom erupted. Some sobbed quietly, others stood in stunned silence. Clara broke down, tears flowing freely as years of false guilt and shame washed away. Nora felt the weight lift, but the fight had left scars. She looked out the window at the city, still broken but maybe healing. Weeks later, Nora visited Ellie in a quiet, sunlit room at a shelter for survivors. Ellie smiled, tentative but real. "I want to tell my story," she said softly. "Not just for me, for all of us." Nora nodded. "Your voice changed everything." Ellie took a deep breath. "And I want to live without fear." The media frenzy eventually faded. The officials resigned or faced further investigations. New laws were proposed to protect vulnerable children and prevent cover-ups. Ava entered counseling and advocacy work, helping other survivors find safety. Clara, cleared of all charges, began rebuilding her life, finally free from the nightmare. Nora stood alone on a hill overlooking Ashfield at dusk. The wind carried whispers of the past, but also of hope. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages of thanks, from victims, families, strangers. Justice wasn't perfect. It never is. But for Ellie, Ava, Clara, and the countless others silenced for too long, justice had come. She exhaled slowly, and for the first time in years the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. Subscribe for more true crime story.